Picture a fire. Not a gas range, not a grill at a backyard cookout started by a lighter. Something older, something in the dark. Around that fire, a group of early humans, probably in the African savanna, about 1 million years ago. In one of their hands is something unprecedented. Cooked meat. Muscle fiber. Protein that has been fundamentally transformed by heat. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has argued quite convincingly that this moment, this specific act of cooking animal flesh, may be the single event most responsible for the human brain you are using right now to listen to these words. Protein didn't just feed us. Protein built us. And today, I want to tell you its story. I'm Zach Sykes. Welcome to Eat or Die, Stories from the Human Table, a show from Renegade Health Group about the things we eat, the history behind them, and what the science actually says when the marketing gets out of the way. Each episode we take one ingredient, a nutrient, food, or molecule, and we follow it through history, through biology, and through your daily life. Today, protein, the most talked about macronutrient in the gym, and the most misunderstood one at the dinner table. Arguably, the most important molecule in your body. Let's get into it. Start with the word itself. Protein comes from the Greek protos, meaning first. First in importance, first in rank. The Dutch chemist Gerardus Johannes Mulder coined the term in 1838. He and his colleagues were looking at this nitrogen-rich substance found in all living things, and they understood even then that whatever this was, it mattered most. They were right. Proteins are large, complex molecules made of smaller units called amino acids. You'll hear more about those in a minute. For now, think of amino acids as letters, and proteins as the words, sentences, and entire books written from those letters. Your body contains somewhere between 80,000 and 400,000 distinct proteins, every one of them doing a different job. Some proteins are structural. Collagen holds your skin together. Keratin is your hair and your fingernails. Actin and myosin are the proteins that literally make your muscles contract. Every time you move, that's a protein interaction. Some proteins are functional. Hemoglobin carries oxygen in your blood. Insulin, a protein, regulates your blood sugar. Antibodies, still proteins, are your immune system's front line. Some proteins are informational. Enzymes are proteins that catalyze nearly every chemical reaction in your body. Without them, those reactions would happen, but so slowly you'd be dead before they finished. So where does it come from? Every living thing makes proteins. Every single one. Animals, plants, fungi, bacteria. If it's alive, it's using proteins to be alive. For us, dietary protein comes in two broad forms: animal and plant. Animal sources, meat, fish, eggs, dairy, they tend to contain all 9 essential amino acids in roughly the right proportions for human use. Plant sources, legumes, grains, seeds, some vegetables, they're variable. Some are excellent, but most require a bit of strategy to get everything that your body needs. We'll come back to that. First, the story. For 99% of human history, nobody knew what protein was, but the hunt for it shaped everything. The evidence is in our teeth and in our tools. Early hominids were not strict herbivores. The archaeological record, from sites like Schöningen in Germany, dating to 300,000 years ago, show wooden spears, purpose-built hunting weapons. We were going after large animals long before we had a word for why their flesh made us stronger. Richard Wrangham's cooking hypothesis, laid out in his 2009 book Catching Fire, makes a striking case. Raw meat is calorie-dense, but difficult to digest. Cooking denatures the proteins, and yes, we'll unpack that word with the professor in a bit, making them dramatically easier to absorb. The shift to cooked animal protein freed up enormous metabolic energy previously spent on digestion. That energy, Wrangham argues, fueled the expansion of the human brain. We hunted protein, we cooked protein, and protein quite literally made us who we are. Then agriculture happened. Around 10,000 BC, in the Fertile Crescent, modern Iraq, Syria, Turkey, humans began domesticating wheat, barley, and legumes. Shortly after, they domesticated animals. Goats, sheep, cattle, pigs. This is where it gets interesting. Grain-based agriculture was, calorically, enormously productive. You could feed far more people per acre with wheat than with hunting, but wheat is not a complete protein. Early agricultural populations, when compared to their hunter-gatherer predecessors, show in their skeletal record reduced stature, increased dental disease, and signs of nutritional deficiency. They had more food. They had less protein quality. The solution, across virtually every agricultural civilization, was the same. Keep the animals. Cattle in Mesopotamia, pigs in ancient China, chickens spreading westward from Southeast Asia. The animal was a protein bank, walking, breathing, maintained against necessity. In ancient Rome, the diet of a legionary soldier, one of history's most formidable fighting forces, was primarily grain, wheat porridge, hard biscuits. But the officers ate meat, and the meat-eating soldiers were consistently noted as larger, stronger, and more capable in close combat. The Romans understood this practically, even without biochemistry. Meat was status. Meat was power. Back to our Dutch chemist, Mulder, 1838. He's analyzing various organic substances and identifies this recurring nitrogen-rich compound. He names it protein. First. Almost immediately, the scientific community gets it both right and wrong simultaneously, which is a very human thing to do. Justus von Liebig, one of the most influential chemists of the 19th century, correctly identified that muscle tissue was primarily protein, and that protein was essential for physical work. Then he concluded incorrectly that protein was the primary fuel source for muscular exertion. This mistake would echo through sports nutrition for over a century. The real-world consequence was significant. Liebig's error convinced Victorian-era athletes and military planners that high protein intake was essential for performance and endurance. They weren't entirely wrong about the outcome. High protein diets do support strength and recovery, but the mechanism he proposed was completely off. We now know that carbohydrates and fats fuel muscular work. Protein builds and repairs the machinery doing the work. Still, the obsession stuck. By the late 1800s, protein had become culturally entangled with strength, masculinity, and national vigor in ways that were almost theological in their intensity. The early 20th century was defined nutritionally by scarcity. 2 world wars rationed food across entire continents. Protein deficiency particularly in children, was a global health crisis. The devastating childhood disease, kwashiorkor, first clinically described in Ghana in the 1930s by Dr. Cicely Williams, was directly linked to severe protein deficiency. You've seen them, children with distended bellies, skin lesions, profound growth failure, those black and white pictures. The post-war world responded with the Green Revolution, massive increases in grain production, and with a global push to increase protein availability. This is the era that gave us industrial meat production, soy protein isolates, and eventually, whey protein powder. Whey, the watery liquid left over from cheese making. It had been discarded as waste for centuries, but in the 1970s and 80s, food scientists figured out how to concentrate it and dry it into a shelf-stable powder. Bodybuilders adopted it first, then athletes, then the general public. Now, whey protein is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, and it came from what used to be poured down the drain. By the 1990s, the pendulum had swung fully. Protein wasn't just a macronutrient, it was an industry, a lifestyle signal, a marketing category. Simultaneously, a counter-movement was also building. Vegetarian and vegan advocacy groups began arguing that plant-based protein was not only sufficient, but superior. The culture war over protein, animal versus plant, high versus low, quality versus quantity, is still very much alive, and we will revisit it in future episodes. What the science says, as of right now, is more nuanced than either camp wants to admit. All right, the professor is in. Let's talk about what protein actually is, chemically, because if you understand this, literally everything else about nutrition starts to make more sense. Proteins are made of amino acids. There are 20 amino acids that your body uses to build proteins. Think of them as a 20-letter alphabet. Every protein in your body is a word, a sentence, or a novel written in combinations of those 20 letters. 9 of those 20 are essential. Essential in biochemistry has a specific meaning. Your body cannot synthesize them. You have to eat them. The remaining 11 your body can make, given the right raw materials. They're called non-essential, which sounds dismissive, but it isn't. They're just not dietary requirements because your body handles them internally. Now, of those 9 essential amino acids, 3 are especially important for muscle protein synthesis. These are the ones I want you to remember. They're called the branched-chain amino acids, or BCAAs: leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Of those 3, leucine is the trigger. Leucine is the key that turns on the mTOR pathway, the cellular signaling cascade that initiates muscle protein synthesis. This is why leucine content matters when evaluating protein sources. Now, a complete protein contains adequate amounts of all 9 of those essential amino acids. Animal proteins, meat, fish, eggs, dairy, are almost universally complete. Some plant proteins are complete: quinoa, soy, buckwheat, hemp seed, and amaranth. But most plant proteins are incomplete, meaning they're low or absent in one or more essential amino acids. This is not a death sentence for plant-based eaters. Complementary proteins, combining a grain with a legume, for instance, covers the gaps. Rice and beans, corn tortillas and black beans, pita and hummus. Across every traditional culture that relied heavily on plant protein, you see this pattern emerge intuitively, long before anyone understood amino acids. What matters practically is total daily intake across a varied diet. If you're eating a wide range of plant foods and hitting your protein target, which we'll discuss in a moment, you'll cover your amino acid bases. Earlier I mentioned Wrangham's cooking hypothesis and used the word denaturation. Now let me explain that properly. Proteins have a three-dimensional shape, a folded, coiled, complex architecture, if you can picture it. That shape is everything. It determines what the protein does, what it binds to, and how it functions. When you apply heat, or acid, or mechanical force, you disrupt that shape. The protein unfolds, and that is denaturation. When you cook an egg, the clear albumin, that liquid protein, turns white and solid. That's denaturation. The proteins have unfolded and reformed into a new structure. Here's the key. Denatured protein is actually easier to digest. Your digestive enzymes, which are themselves proteins by the way, can access and break down the amino acid chains more efficiently. This is why cooked protein sources are generally higher in bioavailability than raw ones. Cooking is, in a sense, pre-digestion. So your body is in a constant state of protein turnover. Muscle protein breakdown, or MPB, and muscle protein synthesis, MPS, are happening simultaneously, all the time. In a fasted state or under stress, breakdown can exceed synthesis, net protein loss. After a protein-containing meal, particularly one with sufficient leucine, synthesis is upregulated, exceeding breakdown, or net protein gain. The goal for anyone interested in maintaining or building lean tissue is to create conditions where synthesis exceeds breakdown across the day. That means adequate protein distributed strategically with sufficient training stimulus to make the body want to build rather than just maintain. That's the mechanism. Now let's talk about what to actually do with it. All right, you made it through science time. The professor appreciates your patience. Let's talk about you specifically. How much protein do you actually need? The RDA for protein in the United States is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. I'm going to tell you something that every sports nutrition researcher already knows. That number was designed to prevent deficiency in sedentary adults. It was not designed to optimize health, performance, body composition, or longevity. If you exercise, if you're over 50, if you're trying to lose fat while preserve muscle, if you're recovering from illness or injury, that number, that 0.8, that's not adequate. The evidence for this is extensive and relatively uncontroversial in the research community, even if the official guidelines haven't caught up yet. Here's the range I recommend, and it's based on lean body mass, not total body weight. That distinction matters because body fat doesn't require protein to maintain. 2.0 to 2.9 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass per day. Let me put that in practical terms. If you weigh 200 pounds and your body fat percentage is 20%, your lean body mass is approximately 160 pounds, about 72.5 kilograms. So at 2 grams per kilogram, you're targeting 145 grams of protein per day. At 2.9, the upper range, you're targeting around 210 grams of protein per day. The lower end of that range is appropriate for moderately active individuals, primarily focused on maintaining lean mass. The upper end is relevant for those in aggressive training phases, active fat loss, or older adults experiencing age-related muscle loss, condition known as sarcopenia, which begins meaningfully around age 40 but then accelerates after age 60. Now, as always, I'm a fitness professional, not your physician. If you have kidney disease or any condition that affects protein metabolism, there's a conversation to have with your doctor before changing your intake. Now, not all sources are equal. Once you know your target, the next question is source. So, a few practical guidelines. Animal proteins. Eggs, chicken, beef, fish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. These are generally your highest quality options in terms of amino acid completeness and bioavailability. Eggs in particular are often used as the reference standard against which other proteins are measured. Whey protein is exceptionally high in leucine, as the professor was mentioning, and absorbs rapidly, making it the strong post-workout option when you want to maximize the muscle protein synthesis window following training. Casein protein, also from dairy, absorbs slowly and releases amino acids over several hours. It's a useful option before sleep to reduce overnight protein breakdown. For plant-based eaters, soy, pea, and rice protein blends perform comparably to whey in studies when measuring muscle outcomes. Hemp, quinoa, lentils, these are excellent whole food sources. Prioritize variety. Now, total daily intake is actually the most important variable, but distribution matters as well. Research consistently suggests that spreading protein across 3 to 4 meals, rather than front-loading or back-loading, maximizes muscle protein synthesis over the course of a day. This is sometimes called protein pulsing. Each meal serves as a leucine trigger, repeatedly activating the synthesis pathway. Roughly 0.4 grams per kilogram of that lean body mass per meal is a useful target for hitting your leucine threshold. So, for our example from before, 72.5 kilograms, that's about 29 grams of protein per meal 4 times a day. Post-workout timing, by the way, once considered that narrow anabolic window that had to be hit within 30 minutes after a workout, that's been largely reconsidered by the research. The window is considerably larger than originally thought, likely several hours. What matters more is that you get adequate protein in the meals surrounding training, not that you choke down a protein shake while still in the parking lot. One last thing. Here's what I want you to take from this episode. The thing underneath all the grams and amino acids and biochemistry, protein is not a supplement. It's not a trend. It's not a gym bro obsession. It is the literal material your body uses to build and repair itself. Every muscle fiber, every enzyme, every antibody, every strand of connective tissue, all of it protein. For 1.8 million years, human beings have been hunting, cooking, fermenting, cultivating, and trading to secure enough of it. Wars have been shaped by its distribution. Civilizations have been organized around its production. The brain in your skull, the one processing these words right now, was sculpted by access to it. Eat accordingly. Well, that's episode 1 of Eat or Die, Stories from the Human Table. I'm Zach Sykes, and this show is produced by the Renegade Health Group. If this was useful, share it with someone who eats, which is everyone. Leave a review if you've got a minute. It genuinely helps people find the show. Next episode, we're going somewhere ancient, controversial, and absolutely essential. You'll want to listen. Until then, eat well.